because I think that's one of the things that's really scary for a lot of people, is that during this time is triggering things in people that have never really had previous issues. And I want to talk about that because it kind of segues perfectly into what I want to talk about next, which is how this time period has kind of taken away a lot of people's coping mechanisms. Um, so one of these coping mechanisms for people who have experienced trauma, or for people who haven't experienced any type of trauma or mental health issue, is being constantly busy. We have, so many of us have developed this this defense mechanism of being constantly busy. And so we pack our schedules with, let's see. Oh, yes, Lucy, I love that. Thank you. So many of us pack our schedules with things to do from the minute we wake up all the way until the minute that we go to bed. And before the pandemic, I myself did this. And I know that it's something that we really do in order to sometimes avoid some of the things that we need to process mentally that we just aren't ready for. And so now that we aren't able to do that, we truly are not able to pack our schedules nearly as busy as we have previously because of the pandemic, because of so many things are shut down. So many of us may even be working from home or not currently working. All of these things that were left unprocessed are now surfacing. And so whether you've never really experienced a mental health issue because you were kind of just able to power through your day and not really worry about it, or if you've done a ton of work around previous trauma and you really felt like you were in a good place and you fully healed everything, this time of stillness and quiet that we are not used to is really allowing all of these things to surface that we didn't realize that we needed to heal. Mm-hmm. So I saw, Bob, you talked about being isolated at home. Absolutely. It's being at home and not really being able to do all of these things that you had done previously is really creating the space for a lot of things to come up. And so, yes. So how do we deal with that? So when we feel like things, ooh, Pablo, I saw that you said, I thought the stillness would help. It did the opposite. I would love to hear more about how exactly that kind of happened, but I'm going to assume, based on some of the things that I've experienced, and kind of talk about that, because I think that's such a good point, is that a lot of us were even like, maybe this time is going to be great. This stillness and this quiet, it's really going to allow us to just heal and just, it'll be good for us. And it actually did the opposite. And I would love to just gently challenge that. I think doing the opposite might actually be really beneficial in the long run, but while it's happening, it can feel very overwhelming because there are so many things that are popping up. So how do we lovingly work through this? One of the things that has been really helpful for me has been past self-work. And so I think, based on my own experiences and what a lot of other people have talked to me about, is that in this stillness and this quiet time, a lot of memories have been popping up, and a lot of things that have been left unhealed are now coming up to the surface to be processed. And so in those moments, I really encourage you to do an inner child meditation. And I'm going to talk a little bit about exactly what that looks like. But the whole point of inner child work is to really go back to a time where you needed something but didn't receive it. And it could be love or protection or safety, whatever it is. But you are going to go back and you are going to provide that for yourself. And so the way that you can do that is just even set a timer for like 5 to 10 minutes, lay down, take a couple deep breaths, close your eyes, and then just ask yourself, like, who from my past needs me right now? Which past self needs me the most right now? And I guarantee you that asking yourself that question, there will be a moment in your life that pops into memory. And it could be a childhood version of yourself. It could be somebody from, mm, yes. It could be a version of yourself from 2 weeks ago that needs your help. But just allow whoever needs your help the most to come forward. And after that, just start having a conversation. You can ask your version of yourself, like, what do you need right now to feel safe? And they may say, I need to go to the ocean, or I need to jump in a pool of gumballs, or whatever, if you're talking to your low kid self. And then just go there with them. Bring your past self. Imagine bringing your past self exactly to where they need to feel safe, and then be there with them. And from there, you can hold them if they feel comfortable. You can listen to them process what they need to process. But just really taking some time to go back to a moment that in your past that may be causing some of these triggers, and healing that version of yourself is going to be so powerful. So I just want to take pause and like read some of these comments, because we're getting a lot of good stuff and I don't want to miss anything. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So there's two things that I'm hearing consistently. Okay, so one of the comments that I see is, yeah, so maybe for 2 months, this like stillness and quiet is good, but not like almost an entire year. Absolutely. My CPTSD has been all over the place with the nightmares. Like my head decided to go down memory lane, not in a sweet, good way. Absolutely. So one of the things that I think is really important is to talk about like triggers. I am talking about them in a way that is like very gentle right now, but there's nothing gentle about triggers. They're very difficult. um, I just want to refund it. I deal with my anxiety by keeping busy mentally, physically, and socially. If it's not broken, don't fix it. But early days of lockdown, I couldn't do that. Awesome. So one of my questions for you, I would actually love to hear is, all of your traditional ways of coping were gone. So what did you do? Did anybody find any new ways of coping with things that they've experienced, or no? Or are you still trying to figure that out? I would love to hear anybody's comments on that. Um, okay, so now this is actually, I think, a perfect segue as well. One of the things that I want to talk about is that this there's a feeling of I'm not enough, or I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do during COVID, because, and as you said, as I'm seeing in the comments, this is not easy. This has not been an easy time, especially because it's been going for almost a year now. And during this time, we're getting a lot of, I think it's quieted down, but I'm still seeing so many posts about like, now is the time to prioritize your mental health, or now is the time to prioritize physical health and like get fit, or now is the time to start a new business, or find a new hobby. And there's so much pressure to take this time and like to find new ways and just enjoy it. Um, and it can bring up a lot of feelings of I'm not enough, because I personally, when this first started, and there are even moments now where I'm like, all I have the energy to do today is just lay on my couch and watch Netflix. Like I can't do anything. I can't like discover a new fitness routine, or start a new business, or like find a new hobby. I just don't have the energy to do that. And so I think there is a lot of pressure out there for people to find these do something during this time, and that's not necessarily fair to ourselves, and it's definitely not, I don't think, a healthy thing to be pressuring people to do. And so how do you deal with that? I would love to hear if anybody's experienced that. How have you dealt with it? And I'm going to share a little bit about how I've dealt with it. Been learning a therapy helper. Oh, I'm going to read one of the comments. One of the questions that I had asked was kind of what tools have you developed recently? I'm hearing the tools I've been learning in therapy helped me for a while. I always use my rubber band on my wrists. Yeah, and the grounding techniques for panic attacks. And then Christine says, yes, I agree. There's so much pressure, and I really had to step back and take a break, especially from social media. Ooh, I think that was a beautiful solution to that feeling pressured and overwhelmed. Is just take a break from social media, and really, honestly, also take a break from the news. I think it is. I know a lot of people find it really important to stay up to date and stay tuned with like what's going on, but I think that it can also feel really overwhelming, and just allowing yourself to take a break from that is really important. I see Oysen, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. I hope I am. So with meditation, how do you recommend a person feel safe when sitting with their unquiet mind? Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. I think that's a great question. So how do I recommend a person feel safe when sitting with their unquiet mind? Mm. So one of the ways that I recommend that is asking yourself some questions, because I think that our immediate response when we feel like our mind is unquiet, when we feel like it's spiraling out of control, is to freak out and get really scared, because we're like, I can't go down this. I can't, if I go down this at all, I'm just going to get sucked in and I'm going to spiral out of control. And that's not necessarily the case. Anytime that our minds are unquiet, it's because there are things that it's just simply trying to tell us. And so I think that sitting and asking some questions and just witnessing what it has to say is going to be really important. So, for example, one, if I feel like I'm spiraling and like my mind is just going crazy, I'm like, "Whoa, girl! Wow, okay, you have a lot to say. Tell me about it. What is going on? What are you thinking?" And then just listen. And the other key to this is that some of the things that come up are going to be scary. Sometimes some of the things that come up are going to be like, oh shit, this is something that I really have to heal, or this is a horrible memory from my past that I don't want to have to deal with right now. And one of the keys to this is knowing that you don't have to deal with it right now. Don't feel like you have to try to solve it immediately. Just allow whatever your brain is trying to tell you to speak to you, and then just witness it. And one of the ways that you can do that is say like, whew, okay, thank you. Thank you for telling me that. I don't have the solution for that right now, and that's okay. But we're going to figure out a solution, and it's going to be more than okay. Or whatever version of that you feel most resonates with you. But just allowing your brain, just allowing your mind to unload a little bit and be unquiet and be kind of all over the place just for a little while is going to be really important in getting past that. Okay. The next question is, or one of the comments is, Lucia, at the same time, I also could pinpoint triggers that before with the everyday life, I couldn't just figure them out exactly. Ooh, yes. So, Lucy, I think you're bringing up a really good point. Because of this time and because of the intensity of this time and some ability to be quiet and still, a lot of the triggers that we experienced previously were now. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Oyson, for your question. We're now having we now have the space for these memories to come forward that are connected to these triggers. So, Lucy, I think that's what you're saying. You kind of, before COVID, you were experiencing these triggers, but you didn't know exactly what they were connected to. But now that you've had this time, you have these memories that you can connect these triggers with, which can feel really validating, but can also feel really scary. So, Lucy, I'd love to hear more about maybe your experiences. Like, has that been really helpful for you, or have you felt like that was made it even worse? I'm going to go to another comment. I found writing down things can help get it out of my mind. Yes. Ooh, I love that, Mel. I love that. So writing things down, I think, is so important. And a lot of times people are hesitant to write them down because they're like, I don't want to keep all these things with me forever. And so one of the things that I recommend is just sitting when you feel like your mind is really unquiet. And Oyson, this can be really maybe an answer to your question as well, is just writing down everything, all of it, write it all down. And then at the end, you can rip up your paper, you can rip it up, or you can even burn it in a way that's safe. And just that is a really powerful way to feel like you've put it out there and you've released it. It doesn't have to be attached to you. It doesn't have to be connected with you or stay with you forever. It's just you wrote it down and you released it. So I'm loving all your comments. Please continue. I am going to talk about, I think I have two more things that I'd like to talk about. One of them is taking on other people's shit. And I think that can happen a lot right now, especially if we're on social media or we're watching the news. We can, or even to be honest, I can go to the grocery store sometimes and I can just feel the anxiety and the emotions of all of the people around me. And I think a lot of people, this is probably something that a lot of people are experiencing right now, maybe even probably without realizing it. And that's another thing that kind of goes back to Lucia's question originally, is a lot of people who have never even experienced mental health concerns before this are now feeling all of these things coming up. And I truly believe that that can be connected with just picking up on the global energy that's happening right now. So how do we deal with that? One of the things that I have really had to learn to do is when I feel like there's these overwhelming emotions that I can't quite place, I just stop myself and I ask, are these feelings my own or are they someone else's? And if they're my own, then we can go back to what I kind of talked about with Oyson's question, which was just sitting with yourself and asking you, okay, what's going on? Talk to me about it. And just talking with yourself through those things, those emotions that are coming up. If you ask yourself, are these feelings my own or are they someone else's? And the answer is they're someone else's, then I really recommend doing a meditation daily where, again, you can just lay down, take a few deep breaths, close your eyes, and then imagine a ball of light in your chest. And as you breathe in, this light gets stronger. As you exhale, this light expands. And just keep breathing as this light grows and expands until it shields your entire body. And then just, you can go about your day just imagining that there's this protective shield of light that's protecting your energy, and it's not allowing your energy to escape from you, and it's not allowing anybody else's energy to kind of come in and affect your own emotions or energy. I want to see this one comment. Okay. It was helpful, but at the same time, really over. Okay. So I asked Lucia kind of when she started identifying these memories that were connected to her triggers, was it helpful or did it feel even worse? And so Lucia's answer is it was helpful, but at the same time, really overwhelming. But talking about writing down, I filled 5 sketchbooks since March, doodle and coloring all the time. Also, and this is a note to self, be gentle with ourselves. Yes, I do that exact meditation before bed. It has helped a lot to shut down my mind before sleep. Oh, Lucy, I love that. Yes, that meditation is so powerful. I'm really glad that you've already even practiced it and it has been helpful. And the sketchbooks, I actually love what you're saying with doodling and coloring, because this, I think, can answer a lot of people's questions too, is I'm hearing so much about an unquiet mind and the mind is racing. And sometimes that's just, our mind just needs to let things out, and it doesn't have to be in such a heavy way. Like, we don't have to sit and say, okay, this is the horrible memory that I've remembered, let's write it in detail. And you can do that if you want to, but if you don't feel called to do that, instead you can just take some time to doodle or color, or I started recently painting, and it's just a really wonderful way for my brain to just creatively release things and also kind of zone out. And it's been so helpful. So, Lucy, I really love that you recommended doodling and coloring, and also being gentle with ourselves, because like I said before, I think a lot of times when these things are coming up, we have a tendency to be like, okay, how can I fix it? We need to work through this now. I need to stop all of this. I need to fix it now. And that just puts so much more pressure and is just unfair to ourselves and not gentle at all during a time where we really need gentleness and love. So allowing us to just simply color or doodle or paint or do something that allows us to release some things, maybe distracts us for a little while, and is really gentle, is going to be really important. Anxiety wall with all of my drawing. Ooh. So Lucy, you said I'm doing my anxiety wall with all my drawings. Pretty colorful. I love that. I love that. Mm, okay. Yes. Okay. So one of the last, this is one of my final thoughts on triggers and kind of a lot of the things that you're experiencing now. And that is when you feel like a trigger is coming up, when you feel totally overwhelmed, you can, one of the things that I like to do is just before I try to do anything, just thank myself. Because triggers are overwhelming and they're scary and they're confusing and frustrating and annoying. Um, but at the same time, triggers are happening because our bodies love us so much that they want to protect us at all costs. And they want to protect us from things that we've experienced in the past. And so when we're reminded of something, our bodies are like, ah, freak out. No, we have to keep you safe. We have to keep you safe. Remember all of these things. Remember all these things that happened. Remember them. I'm showing them so that you remember them and you don't let this happen. And that can be really overwhelming. But if we stop and just say, thank you, mind, thank you, body, thank you for protecting me. Thank you for loving me. Now, we will heal this, and I am keeping myself safe so you don't have to worry. Just stopping and taking some time to thank yourself for that and knowing that and letting yourself know that you are protecting yourself too is actually such a simple way that can be really helpful when dealing with these triggers. I'm not saying it will take it away, but I'm saying just starting the whole process of working through a trigger by thanking yourself is a really good way to just set the foundation of gentleness and self-love when dealing with your trigger. Okay, I have one last question. How do you teach kids how to do this when they are in the middle of a panic? This one came from Twitter. Ooh, I love it. Okay, so how do we teach kids how to do this when they're in the middle of panic? So one of the things, we have to keep it simple. Like, we can't expect when a kid is in the middle of kind of a panic attack, we can't sit down and like, let's communicate about this, talk about it. That's just not going to work. So there's two things that I recommend. One, it goes back to actually a tool that I shared earlier for adults, but it works beautifully with kids. And that is when they are experiencing a trigger or in the middle of a panic attack, to just ask them, say, like, name colors. Baby, let's name some colors. What do you see? Yellow bus. Okay. Green grass. Awesome. Good. And just keep having them name these colors and get them back into the present moment and have them focus on something that's friendly and easy for them to focus on. And then the second thing that I recommend, and this is not necessarily when you're in the middle of the panic, but this can be really good to kind of prevent panic attacks and keep kids grounded, is to get a stainless steel spoon. And I don't have, I'll just use a pen, I don't have one with me, but rubbing the bottoms of your feet daily, like maybe once in the morning or once before they go to bed. It is actually, it's proven, it works with, like, I don't know the tech science behind it, but it can really help ground you. And it's just a fun, weird thing that kids love. So just rubbing the bottom of the feet with a stainless steel spoon in the mornings at night is really helpful. Okay, so Lucia, I see. I really love that talk with ourselves you're doing for people who had never done it. Might sound like odd, but it's the only way we can control our mind and our narrative, not the other way around. Yes. So that, I love that you brought that point up. I think it's so important. We, in the mental health industry, we prioritize going to therapy, and I am all for therapy. I think it's so important. That said, we often think that we don't have access to the tools that we use in therapy unless we're there, and that's simply not the case, because if you think about it, what are you doing in therapy? Someone is asking you questions. They're just asking you questions and you're answering them, and you feel held and you feel supported just because they're talking through things that you're experiencing with you. And that is the basis of self-healing. That's the basis of healing. And you can do that for yourself every single day just by talking to yourself and sitting down and saying, hey, what is going on? Talk to me about it. I can tell you're really upset and you're really scared. And then listen, and then say, okay, wow, well, I really want to help you feel safe. So tell me what you need to feel safe. And then listen. and if they, and then do what will make you feel safe. But just having that really gentle conversation with yourself every single day, I guarantee you will be huge, will just provide huge results in your healing. So that is all that I have planned for everyone. If anybody, I'm going to Hi, everybody. Whoop, that like for whatever reason it seems like it cut out, but I just want to say thank you to everyone. That was all I had planned. If anybody has questions, please feel free to reach out. You can message me on social media or here, and you can check out my website, katiemaloneycoaching.com. And I just loved talking with all of you. I hope that these tips helped, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you again. So, thank you.